Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the Voice of Reason. Today, we are now entering day 129 of the ongoing war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. Today, there has been not a lot of changes in terms of what has happened yesterday going into today. I do understand, as I've talked about before in our video yesterday, that obviously the map situation real-time on the ground may be a little different than what is being shown on a lot of mapping sources that I have utilized on the channel. And obviously, there is a very good probability that there are incorrect areas that are being shown. But generally speaking, I think this is pretty well indicative of what is happening on the ground in terms of Russian advances, Ukrainian counterattacks, Ukrainian defensive operations. But right now, the big issue that is really hampering the Ukrainian military, and we continue to receive these anecdotal reports coming in from Ukraine that indicates the supply situation in the east continues to be incredibly dire. The Ukrainians are trying to again use a lot of Soviet-era equipment. Now, unfortunately, for the Ukrainians, a lot of the ammunition storage depots have been hit and destroyed by Russian forces. And at the same time, the Ukrainians are also trying to transition into newer Western equipment that the United States, United Kingdom, Poland, other NATO partner nations are attempting to provide. But the amounts that are coming into Ukraine, when you look at the high intensity nature of this war, it's just not enough, quite frankly. And there are lots of reports that indicate many of these frontline Ukrainian units are now at or below 50% capacity in terms of manpower, equipment being fielded, and then most importantly, a lot of the equipment just can't be used because they don't have ammunition for said equipment. And, at the start of the conflict, no one, here in the United States, I would say that the talking heads with the Joint Chiefs of Staff were indicating a 76-day conflict. I'm sorry, a 76-hour conflict in which Kiev would fall in a matter of days. And that did not occur, obviously. Another issue that is coming up that I think needs clarification is the fact that, it's not a fact, but it has been said that the Russians do not have the ability to manufacture some of these more advanced main battle tanks that it has lost in the course of the conflict, such as the T-72B3, some of the newer upgraded versions, and the more modern versions, the T-90M, the breakthrough vehicle. And that is simply not true. One, Russia does have the capacity to manufacture its own optics, both thermal imaging optics and normal optics as well. Now, obviously, the Russians have sourced some of those more advanced optics from nation states in the past, such as France, and that has hampered some Russian productivity. But that does not stop Russia from repairing and manufacturing a lot of these systems on their own. The biggest issue for Russia is the more advanced systems and machines that go into making those very precision optics that are required on some of these main battle tanks. But that equipment, obviously, if it breaks down, much of this equipment came from the West. But at the same time, Russia would have the ability to import some of that equipment from China. And I don't think Russia is in the situation now where this equipment is breaking down and it doesn't have the ability to manufacture its own military supplies. We believe Russia is still manufacturing tanks, armored vehicles, artillery, the full range of supplies needed for its armed forces. And I'm not even sure how that report started circulating that Russia didn't have that ability now because of sanctions. Yes, sanctions make things a bit more difficult, but absolutely Russia has the ability to make its own tanks and more importantly, some of the optics that go with those tanks. Now, Russian thermal imaging optics have been known to have a lesser capability than some of the more advanced, let's say, U.S. weapon systems. But generally speaking, in terms of the types of thermal imaging sites that go into the tanks, it's just something that you're really looking for having the ability to identify the thermal signature or outline on an enemy tank at 2,000 meters at night or day, and they have the capability to field those and field those systems, meaning manufacture those systems. But that's kind of, I wanted to just clarify that and talk about that a little bit. And but more importantly, right now, what is happening on the ground in the east, in the Sloviansk, Lysychansk, Bakhmut pocket. I think things are starting to quicken. Things are starting to fall apart for those Ukrainian forces that are operating in this area. And again, as I talked about yesterday, I think we're going to start to see some major territorial shifting in the ongoing conflict. This current view and what you're seeing right now with this really very, very unique horse's head salient that exists is just something that is going to be very, very difficult to maintain, especially in terms of a defensive operation. Normally, in defensive operations, when you see something like this, it's not going to last very, very long. I mean, this is more indicative of a offensive operation in terms of what you would see, but again, you kind of have this inverse defensive salient that has gone into effect. And again, not really sure what's happening. It's more difficult to ascertain what's going on the ground right now because the situation appears to be fairly fluid in terms of what is happening. We suspect right now the Ukrainians are attempting and have been attempting to withdraw forces back along this Sloviansk to Bakhmut defensive line, running along the M3 main route, north-south route here. And you just can't move everything from these areas here quickly, or it would just fall apart, and eventually the Russians would even then overrun your positions to the south of Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, and then you would probably end up having this huge Russian salient that would take shape as the Ukrainian position were to fall apart. But right now, it's more or less a tactical withdrawal for Ukrainian forces from Lysychansk right now. And but again, things are not good for the Ukrainians right now on the ground. And we could, again, as I talked about before, go from a tactical withdrawal or a semi retreat to a full-on collapse of the front lines. And again, that is very, very probable right now in terms of what is happening on the ground if we see a concerted push by Russian forces in this area of operation. We also know that the Russians are very, very active in continuing to strike targets throughout Ukraine. Obviously, within the last 24, 30 hours, Odessa was hit, but the Russians are continuing to strike supply nodes and infrastructure targets that are valuable to the Ukrainian military, and that is continuing. The Russians are continuing to reload, recharge their Caliber missile systems located in the Black Sea. They are continuing to pound Ukrainian targets with Iskanders and air-launched cruise missiles as well. And right now, I would have to say NATO is probably very, very concerned in terms of what is happening. Very interesting in terms of the equipment that is being delivered. I know at the opening stages of the conflict and towards the buildup to the conflict, it was very apparent the United States and the Western nations were very hesitant about supplying certain systems to the Ukrainian military. And it's interesting to see as the conflict has kind of started to run its course, that has changed in terms of what is being offered. And we kind of went from only these so-called defensive systems to now an all-out opening of the door, opening of Pandora's box in terms of the deliveries of multiple launch rocket systems, very offensive systems that could be used by the Ukrainian military. And I guess the question is why is that? And I have some thoughts around that. And I think in the past we have seen the North Atlantic Treaty Organization be rather opportunistic in terms of what it was going to do and why it was doing what it was doing, depending on the situation on the ground. And I think at this point, again, it's proving to be very, very interesting just how NATO operates. And I fear that we are sleepwalking into something that is much bigger than what we are seeing right now. And no one can really look into the future and say, yeah, we are absolutely heading into a third world war. No one really sees if you look back to World War I, World War II, in hindsight, we can look at it a little differently. But what's happening right now, you can't. And unfortunately, this is how very large wars start. And one side is not understanding the thought process of the other side, and obviously that is going on in droves right now. And it should be concerning because at least I feel that we are heading towards something incredibly nasty. And let's just say this: we are not heading away from that. And right now, given the kinetic nature of this conflict, it's just something that we have not seen since World War II. In reality, in the European area, and even during the Cold War, at the height of the Cold War, we saw nothing like this. And I fear that again, I've talked about this before, and I've kind of probably worn out the topic a little bit, but I really believe we could be heading into something cataclysmic, and we can't see the light at the end of the tunnel for what that light could be, and we're focused on what's happening right now in terms of not just Ukraine but other stuff as well, especially here in the United States. I mean, Ukraine is probably come and gone for a lot of people, and many folks here in the States are not even aware of it right now. It's just the U.S. attention span is incredibly short, and that's a problem. If the American people are not observant to what is happening in world and international affairs, especially in terms of war and peace and what's happening right now, the possibility that a political mistake could be made, and right now at least, I believe we probably have the most incompetent leadership in the White House that we've had at quite possibly than anyone can remember. I'm not even sure the guy in charge right now is medically qualified to be in charge. And if that's the case, then you have to ask the question, well, who the hell's leading the country? And I can't answer that question. And I'm not sure very many people can at this point. And again, that revolves around the decision-making process of kind of where we're heading. And that should concern everybody. Anyway, that's it for today. We'll have more very, very soon. Thanks for joining us.